Hello, everybody. Welcome to our session on women in e-commerce and e-services, the rise of women entrepreneurs in the MENA region. As you all know, this is an incredibly exciting time to be in e-commerce in the region. The GCC continues to be the fastest growing sub-regional e-commerce market in the world. And e-commerce revenues in the region have actually quintupled from 2015, from about $5 billion in 2015 to more than 24 billion today. And they're predicted to double again to 50 billion by 2025, according to Kearney. But women are playing a particularly interesting role in shaping the e-commerce space in the region, as both business owners and also as emerging consumers of e-commerce services. And it's really interesting because according to the World Economic Forum, 1 in 3 startups in the Arab world are founded or run by a woman, a number much higher than that of traditional businesses. And today, we're incredibly lucky to be joined by some of these women founders of businesses. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you to a panel of very distinguished speakers from the region. So quick round, I'll start with Joy Ajlouny, founded and exited 2 startups, Bonafare in San Francisco and Fetchr in Dubai. And as founder and CMO of Fetchr, a Silicon Valley-backed last mile delivery company in the Middle East, Joy has raised over $100 million in venture capital funding over the course of her career and has been named the top female founder in the Middle East. We're also joined by Noora, Shanak, an e-commerce consultant and startup enthusiast who was previously the co-founder and COO of ShopGo. And finally, with us we have today Souad Hosani, who is the head of investor care at the Abu Dhabi Investment Office and president of the Nexus Group of companies. So we're incredibly lucky and fortunate to have these speakers with us. Welcome, everybody. So let's get started perhaps with some personal context, because it's always interesting to understand how women founders got started in their businesses. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got into the e-commerce space in the GCC and what attracted you personally and professionally to the space. So Joy, maybe we'll go ahead and get started with you.
Well, actually, it was pretty serendipity, to be honest with you. Unusually enough, I finished exiting my first company in San Francisco, which was called Bonafare. I was in a position where there was a bunch of Arab companies coming in from the Middle East looking for funding. And they said, well, since you just sold your first company in a merger and acquisition, would you like to be a mentor? And I said, sure. So I came and listened to all the pitches. This was 8 years ago, before the whole e-commerce and the whole startup ecosystem and startups and entrepreneurial boom in the Middle East. And there was a gentleman there speaking about solving the problem of last mile delivery. And he was up there pitching. So I went to him and I said, I absolutely love this idea. How are you doing? He's like, I just started funding, and he was not able to raise any money. So I said, look, love the idea. Let's partner. And he said, absolutely. I'm looking for a co-founder. We winded up joining forces, and I took him to all the venture capitalists that I raised money from for my company in San Francisco. So we went together, and it was easier for us to raise money because I had a previous exit and I had already raised money for a company in San Francisco, which got sold in a merger and acquisition deal. So we went together, we pitched all the venture capitalists, and we winded up closing $11.5 million in our Series A funding. And I literally packed up my bags with 2 suitcases, left Silicon Valley, California, and moved to Dubai. And the interesting thing is that I'm back in California now. So it's 4 o'clock in the morning for me. So I'm here joining you lovely ladies in the middle of the night. And that's a little bit about my crazy story. I guess the answer is it's serendipity. I always say 95% of making stuff happen in life is just showing up. I just showed up at this event and they asked me to be a mentor. So you know what? Showing up makes every door open another door. And I'm a big believer. I tell everybody, take off your pajamas, put on your clothes, even if you don't feel like going, because something's going to happen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joy. Noora, what about you? What is your story?
In a way, it's similar. It all started when I first joined the first company after I graduated back in 2004. And what they were doing was a backup software, and they were selling it online. So, and it was back in 2004, selling a backup software online. That was like not unusual here, and got me super excited. And this is when I went into the online experience. A year later, I was walking in one of the malls here in Jordan, and I saw a booth. And my friend was working standing in that booth, and it turned out it was souk.com. I didn't understand it at the beginning, but it was like really interesting. And this is when I understood that online and e-commerce started to come to the region. A few days later, Shopify was created, and I tried creating my own online store back in 2010, and it was super difficult, and it didn't work out. 2012 is when I joined ShopGo, which was similar to Shopify. And this is when we started to work in the region for e-commerce, integrating payments, integrating delivery with the delivery companies. It was a hell because we were trying to educate people before trying to sell. But a few years later, COVID educated people on e-commerce now. And I think it's very interesting times because what we were trying to do in the past like 10 years, it happened in the past 2 years. So, and this is this is in a nutshell my quick experience.
Fantastic, thank you, Noora. And Souad, how about you?
Hi, so I'm the most boring person here. I work for the regulators, basically in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. I am an entrepreneur by heart. In 2009, I set up my private business, but today I'm wearing the Abu Dhabi Investment Office. So the name really doesn't reflect what we do, but we are the promotion agency for the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. And we promote, attract, and facilitate businesses to set up in Abu Dhabi, and e-commerce is one of our priority sectors. Abu Dhabi Investment Office has partnered and invested and provided rebates to companies similar to Anghami, the music platform, and other companies who wants to set up in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. So e-commerce license has been an important license, and as my colleagues on the call said, COVID has taught us a lot. Everything is online. I'm an online addict now. Like you'd find me during Corona and during the whole season of the 2 years, buying and returning and buying and returning and buying. So I think it's just the rhythm of everyone. And therefore, just being more realistic, the Emirate of Abu Dhabi specifically is moving towards e-commerce and looking into companies into the financial technology sector, ICT, innovation, AI. This is what Abu Dhabi government is focusing. And during our conversation, I'll explain to you more about the incentives and programs that have been offered for investors who are looking to expand their businesses.
Fantastic, thank you, Souad. So it's really interesting because a common theme across what all of you have been talking about is sort of the emerging nature of the e-commerce market in the Middle East. The fact that, it's still in some ways early days, but, massively accelerated by COVID. So generally, if you look at what people are saying about the e-commerce market in the region, there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of rosy predictions. And so I just want to put this to you, to each of you, how big is this opportunity really? And where are there possible challenges or stumbling blocks that we need to be aware of? So Noora, maybe we'll start with you. From your experience of working, as founding an e-commerce platform, and from your prior experience even before that, what can you tell us about the market opportunity in the region? And also, what can you tell us about the region's female consumers?
Yeah, as I said, the opportunity is really big. Saudi, UAE, Egypt are the biggest markets here in the region. It's growing. The statistics are saying by 2022, by the end of this year, it's the market value, the market growth is $50 billion. And again, with COVID, it really helped people get online and be more educated and understand how this thing works. And whoever was worried about paying using his credit card, now they have more confidence, and because they trust more the system, and they at least tried it, at least buying grocery through the pandemic. So they trust it even more. There are still definitely big challenges given the fragmented region that we have, unlike Europe, for example. So every country has its own rules and regulations. So it's not easy to sell regional. Each e-commerce company has to understand the different the different rules and regulations of each country. So there are definitely still challenges here and there, but I can see that things are moving on, especially the past 2 years. In terms of the consumption, it tripled again in the past 2 years, but we still see interesting numbers that, for example, men are still spending more online than women compared to women. And the dollar value actually is more. But it really depends from one category to another. But this is what we're seeing overall. Yeah.
Noora, can I ask one quick? Okay, that's super interesting. I'm going to follow up on that in the Q&A in a bit. Okay, super. So Joy, let me ask you next. Where there is e-commerce, there needs to be an enabling environment for e-commerce, and it's not just the platforms, but also the supply chain that we need to think about. The logistics infrastructure to make sure that the e-commerce market works properly. So maybe you can tell us a little bit from your experience with Fetchr, what were the challenges that you were trying to address with that business, and more broadly, what do you see as the challenges that need to be addressed for the region's e-commerce market to grow and reach its full potential?
Sure. So I exited, I exited Fetchr 3 years ago when we had a term sheet from Sequoia, Alibaba, and SoftBank on the table. And I can tell you that after 7 years of building e-commerce, e-commerce in the region is still a huge challenge. There isn't anybody who has mastered e-commerce. And everybody talks about e-commerce growing and shipping, but e-commerce is just another word for shipping. It's one and the same. E-commerce is shipping. Shipping is e-commerce. So what's really interesting is that, to me, it's one word. Okay, especially in the Middle East, in the United States as well, because you can't have one without the other. And that's why a lot of e-commerce companies built their own logistics delivery service. So I think it's last mile delivery is still a challenge. I still think that we haven't solved it, because in places like the United States, like in California and the rest of the area, there's an address and there's an infrastructure set up. So now they're delivering packages to me with Amazon with automated cars, right? That's what Amazon is doing now with no drivers. But they can do that because the infrastructure is set up, where the infrastructure in the Middle East is still not sophisticated enough to have all these automated things. So last mile delivery is still a very manual and very tedious thing. It's gotten better. There are definitely improvements, but it still needs to get to the growth that e-commerce is at. E-commerce has exploded in the Middle East, but I can honestly say that the shipping with last mile delivery has not been as explosive with innovation because of the infrastructure that needs to be set up. So that's my honest opinion. Thanks
for that, Joy. And then Souad, maybe we can talk a little bit about the policy environment, since you represent, the government regulator side. In your role, you're responsible for sort of, attracting foreign investment to Abu Dhabi. And you talked a little bit about, the importance of granting e-commerce licenses and how this is a really attractive sector and one that you're looking to grow and develop. What do you see from your position as a regulator or working for the regulator as critical issues that need to be addressed for the e-commerce market in the region to really grow?
Sure. So there is different perspectives for things that I'm going to discuss. First of all, there was a huge accelerator program, the hugest program that was announced by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed in 2019, which is a 50 billion dirham program that focused on different initiatives, including accelerators for SMEs, startups, Series A, seed, Series B and beyond. One of the programs that came under it was Hub 71. So the Hub 71 program is a program that is supported and run by Mubadala and funded back by Mubadala Development Company, which is one of the biggest sovereign funds. But currently it's located in partnership with WeWork, and it's based in the Abu Dhabi Financial Global Market, which is ADGM. So basically, if there are startups in Series A or seed, they can apply for the program, where basically it's customized to support them and help them do business in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi and to be able to do it. So basically it's packed. We have more than 30 VCs, as Joy mentioned, half of the names, including, Shuruq Partners, Midchain, Securency, and a lot of them that have chosen Abu Dhabi as their hub. Now, as Abu Dhabi Investment Office, Abu Dhabi has announced 5 priority sectors for them, which is agriculture, technology, healthcare and biopharma, ICT, fintech, and tourism. So basically with an ADIO program, which is the rebate program on pay and claim, Abu Dhabi government rebates you on cost, including rent, salaries, and the programs is usually 3 to 5 years. And basically we have signed with big companies, including Amazon Web Services and others that have chosen, to be based in Abu Dhabi. And basically this program looks at Series B and beyond. And now from an e-commerce licensing perspective, there's 2 licenses that has been announced. One is called Tijari. Tijari is for Emirati nationals and for GCC applicants, as well as UAE residents. And basically Tijari allows you to do an e-commerce license as well. We have a freelance license that is available for freelancers who wants to sell things. And there is also a Mubdi'a license that allows business and women to sell from home. As well, there is the virtual license that has been announced recently with the COVID pandemic situation, where people cannot travel in and out. And this license will allow investors to work from their home, but also to be licensed in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. So it's called a virtual license. And, in a set of time when you're able to travel and to come to Abu Dhabi, you'll provide the documents and so on. Now, other accelerator programs that are very huge that are in Abu Dhabi includes Plug and Play, which is run by Microsoft, along with other, accelerator programs that have chosen Abu Dhabi as their home. We also have international offices where we have one in San Francisco, one in New York, one in Paris, one in London, one in Frankfurt, one in Beijing, one in Seoul, and all these offices are looking to attract businesses and SMEs into the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. So we are sector agnostic, Mariam. We support and assist investors with everything they need. This is why we exist. We are a non-profit organization. We're 100% owned by the government. And why we exist is to support entrepreneurs, SMEs, whether they're female, male, all type of companies to come and have Abu Dhabi as their home. So basically, the ecosystem in Abu Dhabi is driven to support innovators and talents. And one more thing that would be interesting for investors a lot is that we have zero income tax. I'm sure many of the GCC countries does the same, but it's important for the foreign investors to know about. And also the golden visa that has been announced recently, where if you're a Brighton student, if you are a real estate owner, if you have your IP, if you are a doctor, if you are an innovator, Abu Dhabi and the UAE government has offered 5 to 10 years long-term visa for investors to live in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi.
Fantastic, so exciting. So you've heard it, folks. Really interesting takes on sort of challenges and opportunities in the region, and also from the government side, what governments in the region are doing to strengthen their attractiveness to investors, and also to help the local e-commerce scene grow and local innovators expand. So let's talk a little bit about women in particular. So I said at the beginning that the WEF says that 1 in 3 digital businesses in the region is founded by a woman. That's encouraging on one hand, because it's a lot higher than the numbers with more traditional companies in the region. But at the same time, it's still well below, half of all businesses being founded by a woman. And it's especially interesting because, the GCC in particular is certainly a region of the world where we do see a very high number of female graduates hitting the workforce. So let's talk a little bit about women. Joy, maybe I'll start with you. My first question will be for you. Let's talk about financing for women. So, you've raised $100 million in your career. you know the financing scene in and out, and we all know that world over, financing for women-headed businesses is very difficult and problematic. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you see as challenges and opportunities when it comes to raising finances for women-headed businesses in the region. What's your experience been?
So look, I'm going to tell you that, what I'm going to say is not going to be really super popular. I'm proud to have my face on the map of the world, of the top female founders of the world. My face is on the map of the United Arab Emirates. You can see that online. I'm very proud to have my face on the map. At the same time, I'm not proud because I want to be knocked off. I want somebody to come in and raise more money than I have. And I raised money from Silicon Valley. I want more women in the region to come forward. And the numbers worldwide on the global stage are down. It's 2% of all funding on the venture capital side go to women founder. That's down from the year before and the year before. So it's going down. It's not going up. With that being said, they're funding more women in the Middle East. But what we need are more exits. What we need are more companies that are potentially venture-backed companies and not SMEs. And that's the problem, I think, with women founders. I've volunteered my time to help women founders in the Middle East because I'm Palestinian and I'm passionate about giving back. So I've met with over 200 startups in the Middle East region to look at their decks as women. And the problem that I see all the time is that they're not venture-backed businesses, they're SMEs. And there's nothing wrong with an SME because they actually are the generator, the battery of creating jobs, but they're not venture-backed businesses. When you have a venture-backed business, you have to look at something that's going to have an exit. An exit means you're either going to be acquired in a merger and acquisition or you're going to IPO. Now, IPOs in the Middle East region are not there, right? Most of the companies are acquired in merger and acquisitions. So in order to do that, you need to have a company that somebody is going to want to buy. Now, I know that doesn't sound very popular, but it's the truth. Venture capitalists are there to make money. They answer to a higher authority. The higher authority that they answer to are their limited partners. Their LPs put money in the fund to have exits within 3 to 5 years. So when I look at women founders and I sit with them, the first question I say is, I love your idea. Are you an SME or are you a venture-backed business? And the majority of them are SMEs. And again, that's wonderful. But then go and raise money from friends and families and from investors who are going to have a percentage in your company, an actual interest in your company, as opposed to venture-backed businesses, which are looking for exits. So the number one thing I ask women founders, who's going to buy you in 3 to 5 years? And they always look at me and go, I don't know. And I'm like, then you're an SME. So this is another reason. Women founders need to think of their companies, if they're going to do it, as venture-backed businesses. They need to understand the difference to see if they're fundable.
Thank you for that, Joy. Really interesting distinction. Souad, on that note, let's talk a little bit about the difference between startups and SMEs. You know, you talked about both in your earlier discussions. You talked about promoting SME development, and you also talked about startups. And I'd be curious to understand, I mean, do you have any more information on the number of women-led SMEs / women-led startups that you've been working with or that you've seen come through in your business? And what's your sense of how female entrepreneurs are faring in this brave new e-commerce world in the region?
Thank you, Mariam. So basically, from a business owner perspective, from a private sector perspective, 10% of the total private sector in the UAE is run by women. From startup perspective, Hub 71 announced that 30% of the companies that have applied by November 2020 were women owned. I think now it's double for sure, because whenever you go into their offices, it's packed with women. And and then you have also Khalifa Fund Enterprises, which is also basically it's basically a program that runs by Abu Dhabi government, or by it's actually UAE-based government, focuses on also a huge number of women businesses. So I think women are involved in a lot of sorry, I'm so sorry, my screen. Yeah. So women are involved in a lot of the government positions and the private sector. So myself, I was an entrepreneur, and just to give it a touch, I started my business in 2009. I was awarded the youngest entrepreneur in the UAE. In 2017, I was the Arab Businesswoman Award, and then I joined government. So I think it's just a dilemma that we both, many of my friends and myself during COVID went back to government, but I think now we're all looking forward to going back to the private sector. It's just, where your comfort zone comes, but there is a huge number of companies and startups, and being the director of investor relations, a lot of my investors are actually women. It's just, I think, Mariam, men are more risk takers than women, and I feel like even when they come to approach, women are sometimes hesitant, but there is a lot of women business based companies based in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, fantastic! Super interesting. Thank you for that. And Noora, this is what part of what you do now, right? Is helping you've been running a program to help SMEs raise equity investments. So this is, the area that you work in. So what can you tell us about digital and business skill building for SMEs and startups in the region, and female-led SMEs and startups in particular? What are you seeing on the ground, and how? What are you telling your cohort?
Yeah. So me as well, I have exited ShopGo 2 years ago, and even before exiting through ShopGo, we did initiatives to support women and take them, whoever is selling offline or through social media, to take them online and give them an online store, an online presence. And now, as you said, I'm helping startups. It's a program in Palestine. Throughout the first cohort, which we supported 16 companies, we only had 4 women-led startups. I agree with Joy that we still lack to see women in the startup field. However, we can see them a lot in high position in companies, and they're able to lead. But also, I agree that they're not risk takers. I think they lack the confidence. It's still a male-dominant world, and the world of startups. And I think men as well, they're not a good negotiators, let's say. Men are much more stronger in negotiating. And unfortunately, if a woman negotiates, she comes across as aggressive. And this is, I'm trying to be very, very transparent. And I think we're being stereotyped in that way. So well, we've seen a lot that female leaders, they always tend to have like men on their side as co-founders and co-partners to help them lead the startup. We've seen a big difference in the past 10 years, but still, I think we still need a lot of work. I was happy to see a few women fund VCs actually coming up in the region, and one of them was in Jordan, Amam Ventures, that are focusing on women fundraising and women supporting women. So I really hope that it comes a little more, more aware, that people should be more aware about this and support women more. This is a
Fantastic. Thank you, Noora. Let me just quickly turn to, I just see that we have a question from the audience, but you've already sort of answered it. It's from Ramzi Qanati, and he's asking if you've seen sufficient investment in female-founded, co-founded businesses, and what's your advice in pitching to an all-male audience? So, maybe Noora, since we're on, we just finished with you, maybe we can start with you this time. What's your take on when will there be enough women? What does it mean to even have enough women headed businesses, and what's your advice to pitching to an all-male audience? Have you had to do it?
It's never enough for sure, Yani, but they have to have mentors. They need to get themselves out there. Honestly, I believe Joy is one great example. She raised a good money, and Yani, I look up to her actually.
Oh, you're so sweet. Am I a girl? Am I a girl? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. I've been, I want to tell you what you said about being aggressive is very true. And I'm so happy that you said that. Like my heart rang when you said that, because when you're an aggressive woman, when you go for what, I hate the word aggressive, but when you go for what you want, and you're passionate about your dreams and you go after it with your heart and your soul, you're labeled. Oh, she's aggressive, she's a disruptive, she's troublemaker, you know, where a man is called powerful and a visionary and a leader, you know? So it's frustrating as a woman, but you have to go in there and you got to be tough. And if they don't like it, well then tough. And what I have found being a woman is that it's actually an advantage in the Middle East, because what happens is if you go in there, you got to present yourself realistically, right? You can't go in there like, you know, I see a lot of my female founders, right? And they go in there and they present themselves as, you know, damsels in distress, you know, like helpless. You have to go in there with a rock solid attitude of like, I know what I need to do to get this done. It's about energy, right? It's about the energy that you portray when you're pitching. And I find that with men, like I remember when my partner and I were pitching, I was able to say things as a woman that a man couldn't get away with because another man's ego was in the way, right? Men with women don't have egos. They may think of you as aggressive, and they may think of you as like, oh my God, look at her, she's so aggressive, she's such a brute, she's such a bully. But at the same time, you can say things and get away with it where another guy couldn't. I remember when I was pitching, I would say things like, love your offer, but you know what? I've got so-and-so who's coming forward, really appreciate it, but I'm not in. And they don't get offended. Where if another man said it to another man, there's an ego play and they would be like, oh, you don't want my money? Who do you think you are? I'm more powerful than you. So there's a male ego clash where women can get away with a lot more. So I actually find being a woman in fundraising to be an asset. I really do. I don't find it to be a liability.
If I can add something to what Joy has said, I agree with you. However, me going through the experience of selling the company, it wasn't an easy ride at all. And we had like these clashes in a way, because we wanted something and we didn't want to let go of the company. It was an 8-year company and with proven sales and proven history and track record. So it was tough actually, but at the end of the day, we had to let go of a few things. Personally, I took it as, even though I didn't get exactly what I wanted, I was like, okay, this is my first experience. I'll just use it as an experience. I'm not going to consider it anything else. So at the end of the day, I was happy about it. And it was a very tough, again, 4 months of my life, but I'm happy I've went through it and I'm much stronger now.
No, being a woman, being a woman founder, I wanted to tell you something, is the toughest thing you'll ever do in your life. Because it is absolutely, you know, they're going to tell you, oh, is there discrimination? No, there's no discrimination. That's nonsense. Of course there's discrimination. Of course they look at you differently. And by the way, that's not a Middle Eastern thing. That's a global thing. Okay. So it is hard to get up there and constantly have to prove yourself. So I get it. And especially, I mean, I did logistics. We built the company to 6,000 employees and I was like all men, you know, and so I get it. But, you know, I think what succeeds the most is success. And what I mean by that is that if you just keep plugging away and the numbers come in and you prove yourself, the numbers don't lie. They don't lie. So they can say whatever they want about you. But if the business is working and the numbers are coming in, that's all you need to do. That's proof. That's all you need to do to prove yourself. And I found that worked for me. When they came for me and they were like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, here are the numbers. So I just think as women, we just have to do it doubly better. And we have to work doubly as hard. No question. But I do find that the majority of women that I speak to are very insecure and very unsure of themselves. Like they'll go in and they'll ask a question. They'll be like, I don't know that. Where a man will be like, oh, I know that. No, he doesn't. You know what I mean? No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He'll just like, women are more, what do they call it? There's a complex called the fraud complex. I forgot what it's called. Where they don't think they're good as good as they really are. It's like an inferiority complex, and I think that is something that we need to work on when we're mentoring. And I do when I mentor women. I'm like, you're amazing. You have an MBA. You just graduated London Business. Like, you know, you're amazing. Like, own it. So I think that it is definitely a platform filled with discrimination, and you got to fight it every single day. No question about it. No question about it.
It's interesting hearing you speak. And by the way, if anybody in the audience wants to ask a question, please drop it in the Q&A section, not in the chat, because for whatever reason, the chat doesn't work. So feel free to type in your questions. But I mean, it's interesting hearing you both speak, you know, about how the lines between who you are and your sort of interpersonal skills and approach and attitude, the way you negotiate, the way you speak, the way you pitch, and the stances you take become sort of indistinguishable from the companies you found and run. And it's you know, how much does that come into play as founders? How much does you as an individual come into play when you're in this space?
Huge. I mean, I'm sorry to jump in, but huge. If you have to go into being a startup and knowing that rejection is a part of your life. If you're the type of person that is offended very easily, then you have no business being an entrepreneur. If you're the type of person that somebody tells you your idea stinks and I'm not interested, and you go home and you self-doubt yourself, then you're not an entrepreneur. So I think it's a character as well. You have to be the kind of person, and I tell all my entrepreneurs this, when you're somebody who doesn't care what anyone thinks about you, then you become the most powerful woman in the room. And you do that because you become like a steel Teflon, pan. Nothing sticks. You just have to keep fighting for what you want and believing and pounding down as many doors as you can. And just remember, I mean, everybody looks at, you know, Joy raised $100 million. You know, nobody knows the story that Joy got 1,000 doors slammed in her face. You know, and I'll never forget the one investor. He's just like, I'm not interested. I'm like, okay. I came back the next day. He's like, I said, I'm not interested. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you know, I have some development. I'll come back the next day. He literally looked at me and was just like, wow. He's just like, you have no shame. He's like, how many times do I have to reject you? And I said, no, I have no shame. Now, in the end, he winded up giving me money. But the interesting part is that in the Middle East, they look at it like you're desperate. Where in the United States, they're like, wow, this is a person who's relentless. This is a person who's a go-getter. This is a person who's not going to take no for an answer. I have to give her money. In the Middle East, it's like, wow, she must be desperate. She doesn't have anybody else to give her money. So there's a definite difference in mentality, right? It's the same thing in failure. When you fail in Silicon Valley, we celebrate failures because you learn something. You know, I had my successes at Fetchr, no question about it. And I've had my failures, right? But now if I go get funded, I'm going to get funded because all the lessons that I've learned. You know, we're in the Middle East, they'll look at it as a negative. We're in Silicon Valley, they're like, we got to get her. So it's a mindset. And I think women going into fundraising have to go in there with the mindset that they're going to have the door slammed, but they have to have thick skin and no shame.
Interesting. Souad, what's your take?
Wow, after what Joy and Noora said, I have nothing more to say. So you know, I don't technically, I'm not a founder, you know, of a platform, but I work with startups on daily basis, and to be honest with you, it's just amazing to see how people are raising money, being successful, having this amazing ecosystem that will support you. The competitiveness is for sure there, but you know, I'm just trying to be like, fair. I don't think, the women in Abu Dhabi have faced these problems a lot. I have seen a lot. I have been with a lot of girls, who are starting up companies, doing ventures, or funds. I think, the ecosystem here is more friendlier somehow. And, for example, in my team, I have like 6 women. I have been mentoring, speaking about mentorship. It has been just great, seeing this talent and youth. I think it's also a mentality, as Joy said. It's also a mentality, different cultures, different mentality, different expectations. And to be honest with you, like now that I'm reviewing myself and seeing, for the past 3 years, how many investors, startups, women and men come, I never had this idea in my mind, whether it's a female or a male. At the end of the day, I'm here to support them in their expansion plan and to expand into the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. So, the gender was never an issue with us, to be honest with you. Bilaks, like I always wanted to support women, and you'll see me like so pushy to have this, spirit, like, oh, she's a woman, she's an entrepreneur, let me support her. Like I will always have this. And you would see it and you would feel it, but with us, we have helped anyone as long as it's a successful pitch. It's gonna fit. It's gonna serve the economy. It's important. And yes, and speaking, Joy, of a lot of when I was on my business delegation trip to the States. 2 months ago, I was in New York and San Francisco. I was amazed by the number of women accelerators program that have been there, and I'm working with couple that I'm looking to move into the Emirate of Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
that even focuses, and we have a program that we are focusing on minority and women business programs that has been announced by the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, and it's a US-based campaign that has been launched 2 months ago, and we had huge, people on it, including, Patrice Vera, Christina Milan, and a lot of those big players that focuses on women and minority in the US specifically. So there is aspects for it, but again, as a government organization, we support and assist people from all genders, from all nationalities, from all, we are just here to support and assist. Plus, women support from my side.
No, for sure. Well, I'm in San Francisco now. So
yeah, I was there actually a month ago. If I met you then, it would have been amazing.
Wish I knew that, I would have invited you over. I would have met up with
more trips to come. Definitely.
Well, if you need anything from San Francisco, let me know.
Thank you so much, Joy.
When you're sort of working with startups and SMEs that are headed by women, what's your advice to them? What do you tell them as we talk about pitching, as we talk about confidence, as we talk about the ability to be tough, to take rejection? What's the sort of personal advice that you give to women that you work with and mentor?
The question is for me, right?
Yes, for you, Noora.
Yeah. As we were talking, just be yourself. You have to expect that it's not an easy ride, but enjoy it. There's a lot of obstacles in the way. So expect everything. And just make sure to have a mentor with you. For me, the mentorship was amazing. And mentorship in different areas, and legal and financials. Legal and financials are a must for every single company. But overall, how to deal with your team, and it's amazing. Mentorship is something that I would advise every single person to have it.
And where can someone find a mentor? So if we have people in the audience that are female entrepreneurs starting out in their journey, where are there programs like the Women Accelerator program that Souad was talking about, where you can find, that kind of support? What's the landscape like in the region? Do you know?
So for me, I used to do it in 2 ways. Talking to other colleagues in the startup world that we're both having the same issues, and we used to have sessions, like brainstorming sessions, 2-3 hours, and to elaborate more on how to figure out stuff. This is one thing. The other thing, I did seek out to Joy, and she was a mentor for ShopGo for like a few sessions that we talked to her. So people who have been through some similar experiences, talk to them, reach out to them, on LinkedIn, and there are definitely programs where you can join, like the accelerators, and you can go in and see who their mentors, and you can reach out to them.
Fantastic. Joy, there's another question that's been posed here, and I think I'm going to have it, I'll pose it to you. The person, somebody from the audience has said that matching founders with investors is a challenge, especially for earlier stage ventures and ideas. Do you know what the landscape is like? I mean, is there a Y Combinator?
It is. Oh, who your partner is and who your team is, your co-founding team, is like finding a husband. Can I tell you how to find a husband? Well, actually, in the Middle East, there's a lot of matchmaking, so maybe. But it is the hardest thing to do because you are married to that person. You are, and 90%. I mean, finding somebody who can work with you on a day-in, day basis, build a company with the stress of raising money, is the hardest thing on the planet to do. And you will find that most co-founders wind up breaking up, and companies wind up getting destroyed because the co-founders fight. So it is a very tough thing to do to find your team. Your team is everything. When I look at investments, and I've invested in a bunch of, I'm in California, so I get a lot of early stage deal flow. And when you're investing in early stage deal flow, that's the one thing I want to do is I look at the co-founders. I look at the energy of the people. I look to see what the flow is. Are they opposites? Do they get along? It is extremely important. And in my opinion, I find that opposite skill sets work better than skill sets that are the same. I prefer to see completely opposite co-founders. When they do the same thing, have the same personality, it makes me a little weary. But yeah, it's tough, and there's nowhere to find them. You can't go to Y. I mean, you literally, it's like asking me to say, where do I find my husband? You can go to the dances, the Y Combinator events, or the plug and play events, or or plug and play, or you can go to Hub 71 and mingle. But finding somebody to collaborate with is meeting somebody who's of like-mindedness, and that's really hard. That's really, really hard. I don't have an answer for that one.
Makes sense. And Souad, I mean, what's your sense of how robust the financing options are for companies that are still in the early stages of their business? I mean, I think
the ecosystem is still very new, and I think people are funding companies that are not going to have exits. I think there are a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, which, like I said, in the very early stages of this conversation, are wonderful. They're wonderful, but they're not venture-backed businesses. I think we need more exits. If you want to know what's going to make the ecosystem robust, early stage funding is not hard. Getting 100,000, 200,000 is not difficult. Everybody's throwing money at startups. But the question that you got to ask yourself is the later stage, getting a Series B, a Series C, a Series D. That you're going to have to come back to Silicon Valley because there are no investors, very small, very, very few investors. Mubadala is one of them that'll take you to Series B and beyond. But the majority of the investors in the region only do early stage. So it's easy to get money early stage, I believe, if you have a good idea in the Middle East.
Interesting.
So from my perspective, many of the investors, who comes to me are looking for funding options. So being an investor relations team, if it fits Abu Dhabi rebates team, Abu Dhabi Investment Office programs, we would send it to the investment team. They would look at it. If it fits, then they will agree on the model of partnership from 3 to 5 years. This includes companies like, AeroFarms, Pure Harvest, RDI, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Plug and Play, all of these companies that Ad you have signed with, and it's already on the website. Now in Abu Dhabi, for example, we might have companies that are not Series B and beyond, but they are good, successful companies. So we have 3 main sovereign funds in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, as Joy said. One of them is Mubadala. So we work very closely with Mubadala, where we send them all the leads, and if they're interested, they will take it forward. And then the second thing, we work with ADQ, which is Abu Dhabi Holding. And ADQ now is one of the biggest players in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, which also looks into investing. And then the third one is we speak to people like G42, you know, and other huge holdings that have been launched in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. And then what we do is also we work with the sovereign funds, with the VCs that are that are located in Abu Dhabi global market. Most of them are listed on their website. So the biggest VCs that have launched there. And then we also work with family offices. So there is huge family offices in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi that are looking into partnering and working with investors. So then we start sending them and matchmaking them with the family offices in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi if they are seeds and Series A, or if any family offices said, Souad, we are looking for people in healthcare or ICT or, you know, fintech or crypto or so on. Now, another way that we also support investors is by introducing them to the Emirates Development Bank, which is looking also to support investors now, and they have a program for SMEs that have been launched recently. And the EDB is one of the major banks that we have been working with, and also working with other based Abu Dhabi banks like, you know, FAB and ADCB and so on. So we do also that. And then Abu Dhabi Global Market have the Reg Lab, which is basically a platform where it matches the investors along with the pitchers. And there is also a lot of, you know, demo days that happens and pitches that we also invite people to attend. Not forgetting also the Angel Investor Association, where there are angel investors. Some of them mentioned their names and some of them doesn't want to be in the picture, where they also invest. There is also an Angel Investor Association that have been very active past year and won a couple of awards for their angel investors. So this is where what we do as Abu Dhabi Investment Office. We don't want someone to leave Abu Dhabi. We want them to have Abu Dhabi as their home. So we try as much as possible to help him raise funds, and it's not easy, as Joy mentioned. It's not easy, you know. It's if I send, you know, 10, 20, 30 companies, I think 2, 3 will be successful. But again, you know, we are here to support investors to stay in Abu Dhabi, to have their R&D centers in Abu Dhabi, their excellence centers in Abu Dhabi, their IP in Abu Dhabi. That's why we exist. We want them to stay here, so we support them in every way possible. And at the end of the day, you know, I always say to the investor, it's a pitch that you have with a big guy in an entity or something. You either fail it or, you know, nail it. So, you know, you need to decide how you will go forward with it. So I put you in contact. I will match make you with the person. As you said, you know, marriage is not in my hand. I'm still looking for my husband, by the way, Joy. So
don't worry. By the way, Souad, me too.
Just kidding. So yeah. So basically, you know, so I'll tell you something about me. I really get married to my investors, and specifically when I see someone, you know, who's young, who is very innovative, who is so pushy, you know, he wants to get the business, you know, like I would serve him until, you know, all the doors will close, and then I will tell him, I'm really sorry, like I have introduced you to everyone. But there is a lot of ways to help them. But as government entities, those are the main ones. And as private sector, there is a lot of family offices. It will really depend on matching the family with the sectors they're interested in. You know, like, is it in automobiles? Is it, you know, it's renewable energy? Is it, you know, oil and gas? You know, which is traditional sector. So it really depends on the family office matching. And this would be also another angle of investments that we look at.
Well, you know, I just want to interrupt really quickly. I have to say that the government of Abu Dhabi and you guys are doing a really good job to try to build an ecosystem for startups. So I appreciate that. You guys actually were the first. You were the first. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And we are here. I would post also my contact details for the attendees, my email, my WhatsApp number. I'm always reachable. Feel free to pitch it. Don't be shy. Just pitch it for me. Noora, I was in Jordan 2 years ago. I met with Intaj. I met with Mawdu. I met with all the biggest people in Jordan, asking them also to come to Abu Dhabi. And we have a lot of these discussions also. So, you know, so we are working with the whole region. Despite if we have just 8 international offices, we are supporting investors from everywhere. We want them to come to Abu Dhabi. We'll find them a way, and we will help them and assist them with everything they need. You know, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put you with the right contacts, with the best sector leads within ADU, and we will have the leads support you and assist you. We have subject matter experts in healthcare, ICT, oil and gas, manufacturing within the team. We are a huge team now. We're almost 100. So the whole team is there to support and assist the investors to come to Abu Dhabi.
We only have a few minutes left, everyone. I just want to thank you so much for an incredibly interesting discussion today. And I'll leave you with one final question from the audience and a question from me, and you can pick which one you answer. So the audience wants to know what's the future of e-commerce in the region. One prediction from you. And my question is, if you were going to, if you were going to say one thing based on your experience in the region to female founders, what would it be? So pick your question and go ahead and answer. Noora, maybe we'll start with you.
I would pick the question about e-commerce. So my predictions are basically, Middle East is still new. It's still way behind. So I think what's going to happen in the next few years is on the logistics side and the payment and the whole technical integration in between, hoping the rules and regulations between the countries in the Middle East are more are easier. And of course, we're seeing much more growth. So hoping those three pillars of the e-commerce are strengthened to see better services in e-commerce.
Fantastic. Thank you, Noora. Souad?
I will actually answer both. I think, the purchasing power in the Middle East is very strong. I have seen it. I have seen it in Abu Dhabi. I have seen it in the UAE. I have seen it in Saudi. You can see that the purchasing power is very strong and e-commerce has a huge future. During the pandemic, if we didn't have e-commerce, we would all have suffered. We were all ordering online. We were all, buying everything online, using Talabat, using Deliveroo, using Zomato. I think, I have every application on my phone by now. I even hate going shopping now face to face. I just prefer, I started knowing my sizes at the Net-a-Porter and Onas and everything. So everything comes to home and I love it. And I think, it became a habit for us. I think, I think e-commerce will always be an important topic. It's always something easy to sell. I always see companies per day that is in the e-commerce sector, and it's easy also to pitch. I tell you, it's whether it's it's how you pitch it and how do you tolerate your pitch and how much investment is needed and how you package it will help you be successful. And my advice to the ladies here: be a trailblazer. Don't be afraid to do new things or do things differently. So just take the risk. Do it. I'm also crazy. I love to take risks and everything. I told you, like, I was an entrepreneur one day and I just ran until I became a successful businesswoman as well as a government employee now. So I think, just do it and be successful about it and follow your dreams. There is nothing to stop you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Enjoy. Any final thoughts on either the region's e-commerce market or a piece of advice to women out there who are looking to grow?
Well, I'm gonna say e-commerce is gonna change dramatically because direct to consumer is the future. And two things that I'm gonna say: A, I think the Chinese are coming in droves, and direct to consumer from China has become a huge input coming into the region and in the United States as well. The direct to consumer model, no matter what it is, washing machines or whatever it is, number one. Number two, logistics still needs a lot of work. And number three, regulations with the banking sector. The return situation with the ease of getting the package and then returning and getting your money back as quickly as possible is still not there. E-commerce has not kept I'm going to say there's still a lot of things that need to be done with the banking sector to keep up with e-commerce. And one of them is customer service with returning your money in the return as quickly as possible and not waiting. I mean, I wait anywhere from, 4 weeks to 3-4 months to get a refund. It should be instant. I click a button on Amazon, my return is immediately put on my credit card, no questions asked. So there's still a lot of room to grow for e-commerce. I think direct to consumer from China is going to be the big winner. And I also believe that we still need more work on customer service for e-commerce delivery and returns with the banking sector returning the money. But I do believe that there's a lot of opportunity in the Middle East. But what I'm going to say is that you don't need to be creative. You don't need to come up with some genius idea. You just need to do, like, look what Karim did. Karim came into the market and he understood the localization and he was able to grab market share. So you don't need to be a genius. You need to understand localization and grab as much market share as you can. So then they're forced to buy you because you understand the region. And that's something that Karim did so beautifully because women didn't want to give their credit card and women didn't want to give their phone number. So Kareem was offering things that were localized. And because of that, he grew market share, and then Uber had to buy him. So as women founders out there, you don't need to come up with innovative ideas. You can copy the innovative ideas that have already been done. Just do them better and grab as much market share as you can.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're out of time today. I want to thank you all for a really interesting conversation. This was a lot of fun and very insightful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.